What the heck is this? When I got back from working late, what I saw was my girlfriend, the one I adored, hugging my colleague. As my emotions crumbled, I desperately parted my lips. My name is Kevin. I'm the guy who had my girlfriend stolen by a coworker. Dragging my heavy feet, I trudged the path to the office. A heavy sigh escapes my lips and seems to get sucked right into the ground. Why do I even have to go to work on a day like this? Such complaints spill out in my mind. I used to think that having your girlfriend stolen by a colleague was something that only happened in dramas. Never would I have imagined I'd have this kind of experience. I met her at a company drinking party. We worked in different departments and originally had no connection, but amidst the lively crowd, someone called out to me, "You're Kevin, right?" Turning to the voice that held a fluffy sweetness, there stood a beautiful woman clad in equally fluffy and adorable clothing. "I'm Alice from the accounting department." She bowed her head lightly, so I quickly bowed mine in response. "I'm Kevin." "I know, you're quite the celebrity, Kevin." "Celebrity?" I tilted my head in confusion at her smile and such a remark. Seeing my reaction, Alice's smile deepened even more. "Kevin, you're known as the sales department's ace, even in accounting." "An ace, that's too much." Though her words made me modestly shake my head, inwardly, I felt pleased. The sales department's ace. Indeed, my performance had been good lately. My deals were going well, and it seems other departments knew it too. While my cheeks relaxed with joy, Alice approached with a hint of nervousness. "May I join you for a drink?" The circulating drinks and her blushing cheeks made her look incredibly endearing. Before I knew it, I had nodded to her invitation. And I thought everything was going fine until yesterday, or was I the only one who thought so? Taking a deep breath at the office entrance, I braced myself and stepped forward. "Good morning." Contrary to my resolved heart, my voice came out small and trembling. Yet no one seemed to notice, as everyone greeted me as usual. Well, not everyone, but everyone except one. Good morning, Kevin." Just as I had steeled my resolve, my coworker James greeted me with a nasty sneer, as if trampling all over my decision. Seeing his face for the first time since yesterday made my heart ache, and I involuntarily turned away. "Did you sleep well last night?" But James kept talking, regardless of my desire to ignore him, and anger started bubbling within me. Honestly, I didn't want to remember yesterday. I averted my eyes, wishing he would just leave me alone. "What's the matter? Not fun?" James said that and went back to his desk. Sigh. On the deserted rooftop, as the autumn wind blew, I let out yet another sigh. The slightly chilly breeze seemed to calm my heart, making me feel a bit at ease. I had told Alice yesterday to leave. At first, she seemed to want to make excuses, but then, seeing me downcast and clenching my fists, Alice swallowed her words. She must have sensed my unyielding intent. Of course. In the apartment we started living in together, I found her embracing James, my coworker. There's no way I can forgive that, nor do I want to. What am I gonna do now? The room was rented to live in with someone else. It's a bit too spacious for just one person. I was considering moving as one of the options for what to do next. As I sighed and looked up, the sky was clear and beautiful, in stark contrast to my feelings. While I was about to sigh again, looking at the sky, a voice suddenly interrupted. "All those sighs, are you sure you're okay with happiness slipping away like that?" I was taken aback by the unexpected voice. "It's you, Sarah." I was surprised at the person I find when I look up. It was Sarah, known in the secretarial department for her beauty. Took him up for a break on the rooftop and find the ace of the sales department looking like a zombie. Zombie, that might be a bit much, but indeed, anyone who saw me like this would think the same. Unable to argue with that, all I can muster is a wry smile. Sarah smirked a bit mischievously at me and says, "Want a beautiful and dependable older woman to listen to your troubles? Huh? You've got something bothering you, right?" I had been sighing. After all, it should be obvious I'm troubled, yet I feel as if she can see right through to my heart. Talking about it can make you feel better. Her smile is playful, but her eyes are filled with kindness. Encouraged by Sarah's words, I started to spill my thoughts in bits and pieces. Well, it's just that, in the end, what Alice really wanted was just a boyfriend with a good title, not me for who I am, I confess. As I talk, I realized how much it had actually hurt. I'd been so focused on work and what comes next since yesterday that I hadn't given myself the chance to process my own feelings. That's why I hadn't noticed. I felt something cold on my cheek. Only when a tear dropped onto the fist I've been clenching, I realize I'm crying. After I finished talking, Sarah took a breath before speaking. "You've been strong." She offered me a handkerchief, which, surprisingly for someone as glamorous as her, was a cute pink color. "Thank you," I managed to say, taking it. Then Sarah looked at me with a straight gaze, her beautiful face bringing a mix of confusion and nervousness to me. Then she said something unexpected. "Hey, Kevin, will you partner up with me?" The word partner brought questions to my mind. "What do you mean by that?" I asked honestly, and a playful smile appears on her face. She's beautiful, but Sarah also seems to have a childlike innocence about her. "There's a big project starting up. I want you to help me with it," she explains. Sarah's slender white fingers overlapped with mine, gripping the handkerchief. I flinched reflexively, my heart skipping a beat. But she doesn't seem to notice my reaction. Instead, there's a firmness in her touch. "What do you say?" She asked this at close quarters. "Being part of a big project will definitely improve my skills. And more than anything, I wanted to focus on work right now, to reduce the time spent on unnecessary thoughts. It might be selfish of me to approach a big project like this." As I'm battling with doubt in my head, Sarah whispers, "It's okay. Maybe if she believes in me this much, it's worth a shot." I'd be honored to. From that day on, my busy days began. In the morning, right after arriving at the office, I'd get the car out, and it was arranged that Sarah and I would make our rounds to greet clients. Of course, I was driving, relying on Sarah's navigation to get us around. Lunch was usually a light affair at a nearby cafe, which had become our regular spot. Sarah always ordered the same thing: coffee and an egg sandwich. I made sure they added sugar for you. Thanks. It was something I had come to realize after pairing up with Sarah. She had quite the sweet tooth. Sarah, looking sharp in her pantsuit, I had, albeit mistakenly, pegged her as the black coffee type. So when I first saw her putting plenty sugar and milk in her coffee, I couldn't help but blurt out, "Huh, not black." She puckered her lips slightly in annoyance and responded, "I like sweet one." Seeing her like that, I secretly thought she was actually quite adorable. Another thing I noticed was that Sarah was not a morning person. Yawn. Good morning. Her morning greetings in the parking lot were usually mixed with yawns, and while you'd think her hair was impeccably done, sometimes the back was sticking out. Getting to know the other side of this beautiful secretary was becoming a daily delight. Then we would usually return to the office in the late afternoon. As soon as we were back, we'd start on document preparation and go through meetings repeatedly, together. We pondered how to make things better, how to satisfy the users and the clients with this project. Going home always happened after the day changed, but the days were fulfilling. It spared me from needless thoughts and from seeing my colleague James or my ex-girlfriend Alice. Above all, Sarah was counting on me. Working together with her was a great joy, a motivation to keep pushing through each day. Gradually, I found myself determined to make this project a success with Sarah. Lying on bed, I clenched my fist and raised it toward the ceiling. I'm gonna make this a success, I whispered with determination, and with that, consciousness slipped away. It's finally tomorrow, huh? What's the matter, Kevin? Feeling nervous? Even I get nervous sometimes, you know. Amidst the rustle of the office in the secretarial department, just before the last train, these teasing words were directed at me, making me feel a bit embarrassed as I responded. Seeing the ace of the sales department nervous is a rare treat for me. With that, she gave me a beautiful smile that seemed to outshine any gain I could claim, making a small thud in my heart. Today, like any other, was filled with making rounds of greetings and preparing documents. After the meeting, Sarah and I were getting ready for the project presentation tomorrow. Tomorrow, we'll be presenting the content of our project to our clients. Once we get past this, it's just a matter of moving forward. We had finally made it this far. I had sworn to myself that I would make it a success, which was why I was nervous, but it seemed that Sarah was different. "Don't you get nervous, Sarah?" When I asked, she looked surprised for a moment, then flashed an easy smile. "Of course not." I thought to myself how different the beautiful ladies of the secretarial department were, but the words that followed took me by surprise and made my heart beat loudly. "I've worked so hard to get here with you, Kevin. There's nothing to be afraid of." Her clear-cut beautiful smile was so dazzling, I couldn't help but sigh. Hey, why the sigh? At times like this, Sarah's ability to see right through me felt a bit sly, but also somewhat comforting. That's why I didn't bother to answer her question and just said, "Let's hurry up and finish the prep so we can go home." "Okay, so we'll check everything again after we come in tomorrow." "All right." With preparations done, I headed for the elevator to leave the company. Thinking about the things to check tomorrow, I might come in a bit early. As I was setting the alarm on my phone, a high-pitched ding sounded, and the elevator stopped at an intermediate floor. The person standing beyond the now-open doors widened my eyes in surprise and tightened my chest. "Kevin." The voice that reached my ears was sweet. When we were together, it sounded cute. Now it was just irritating, and the mere act of her calling my name made it hard to breathe. Beyond the doors stood Alice and James. "What, you are still here? For an ace, have you fallen so low to be working overtime?" James sneered with a snide remark, stirring anger within me. But since I didn't even want to speak to him, I remained silent, staring him down. "That's scary, scary. That's why I could take Alice from you." "Stop talking about that at work." I realized quickly that he was taunting me. Though no one else was around, a company is not the place to bring personal affairs. That was my firm belief when I said those words. However, the response didn't come from James, but from Alice next to him. I was lonely. "Kevin, you never paid any attention to me." So I turned to James. Alice wasn't listening to me. She rattled off personal sentiments, and I sighed out of sheer exasperation. Moreover, her words seemed to be blaming me, making me think, was Alice always this kind of person? I was just disappointed. I didn't care anymore. With that thought, I turned away and reached out to press the elevator button. I didn't want to be in the same space with them any longer. "But if I've been listening all this time, you're really good at playing the victim, aren't you?" A voice tinged with a hint of anger resonated among the three of them, and that's when I remembered Sarah's presence. I had been talking to Sarah, but I hadn't wanted her to hear such talk. That thought gave rise to a different kind of tightness in my chest. Yet Sarah continued to gaze directly at the two in front of her. "You can't even support a busy ace like him. I question your standing as a woman. Plus, you'd be better off dumping that kind of guy." Her voice was steady, with a firm core that didn't waver. All we could do was listen to Sarah's words. A man who can only show himself by belittling others is hardly worth your time. Well, if that's your unusual taste, I have nothing to say. The image of Sarah, who couldn't handle black coffee and wasn't a morning person, seemed to vanish somewhere, I thought to myself. While I was thinking about this, suddenly, Sarah wrapped her arms around me in a tight hug. Our three voices overlapped in response to the unexpected turn of events. But Sarah didn't seem to care and declared, "Kevin is already going out with me." She stated it matter-of-factly. "Wait, Sarah." Stepping out of the elevator and seeing her, there was a mischievous smile. Seeing that smile, I immediately caught on and managed to say, "Enough with the teasing, please." But I was a little irritated. Sorry for butting in so suddenly, but, watching her stylish figure walking ahead, she turned back with a slightly shy smile and said, "You know, I wouldn't mind if you really want what I mentioned earlier." Her words left me unsure if she was joking or serious. I wonder if I'll keep being tossed around by her in the future. With a sigh that was becoming all too familiar, I called out to her back walking ahead. "What if I took that seriously? I was planning to tell you to wait until the day after tomorrow because we have the big project tomorrow. Then, let's plan for the day after tomorrow." Sarah stopped without turning back and asked, "Really? Didn't I just say so? I'll give you my answer the day after tomorrow." If I could see my face in a mirror right then, I'm sure it would have a slightly mischievous expression. If you can say such clever things, you must be all right. Thanks to you, Sarah. Let's do our best tomorrow. Yes, I'm suddenly feeling very motivated. When she turned around, her face was so bright it was beyond words. And the next day, on the way back to the office after the project presentation, we were at our usual cafe, drinking coffee together. "Think it went well?" she asked, adding more sugar to her coffee than usual, perhaps freed from the tension. "It's all good. The materials seem to resonate with the audience, so there shouldn't be any problems. It will definitely be a success." "That's a relief. But now I'm wondering about your answer tomorrow." Of course, she was referring to the matter we had discussed the previous night. "Can I give my answer now? Is that all right?" "Sure. Please go out with me." Silence fell between me and Sarah, and the cafe's background music suddenly seemed very loud. "Are you sure I'm not that cool, black coffee drinking executive secretary you imagined?" "I already know that. I've made up my mind not to judge people by their looks or titles." "Oh, you have a good mindset." "I like Sarah, who enjoys sweets and cute things. So, what do you say?" "Thank you, I'd be glad to." Her smile was as charming as a young girl's. And that's how Sarah and I started dating, becoming the envy of everyone in the office. Speaking of those troublesome two, they got a good scolding from the executive for flirting during overtime. James was sent to a small factory in a remote area known for its strict manager. And Alice was transferred to a branch office full of tough career women, both apparently getting squeezed dry every day. "Hey, there's a new project." "Yes, leave it to me." As for me, I'm confident of a bright future every day. My name's Mike. I'm a 45-year-old divorced single guy, working as a contract employee at a real estate company. That's my status in a nutshell. When I put it into words like that, I don't sound like much, but my colleagues don't seem to think too poorly of me. However, my immediate boss, Karen, seems to dislike me. She's a young, beautiful career woman, seemingly in her early 30s, which makes her a whole decade younger than me. She's about to marry her handsome, elite boyfriend, and she really seems to have it all. From her perspective, I guess a guy like me who isn't getting ahead must be incomprehensible. I feel it painfully in her usual demeanor toward me. When I and a full-time colleague ask for the same thing, her response is blatantly different. But I guess that's just the way it is. I wasn't particularly bothered by it since it didn't interfere with my work. But then, one day, something happened. What exactly did you learn in college? Karen's harsh attitude wasn't only towards me. She was tough on those who weren't performing well and the new hires, especially the young women. That day, she was scolding a new employee, Emily. While hitting Emily's desk repeatedly with documents, Karen yelled, "Do you even care about your job making such basic mistakes? I'm sorry, but I did it the way I was instructed to. Making excuses, that's pretty bold for a newbie." Karen's shouting filled the entire office floor. Don't think just because you're young you can get away with anything. I don't think that. Maybe she was in a bad mood today. Her words seemed harsher than usual, and it was uncomfortable to listen to. Seeing Emily about to cry, I felt sorry for her and stood up to block Karen's view. I was already disliked by Karen. I wasn't scared of her in the least. Do you really need to be so harsh? Emily is a new employee. It's a manager's job to explain things properly, isn't it? Karen snorted at me, defending my colleague. That's none of your business. It is my business. Emily is on the same team. Then you are complicit. How are you going to take responsibility for this mistake? Karen threw the documents at me. It was a contract and estimate that Emily apparently had made following Karen's instructions. I looked at the documents closely. Is something wrong with them? Karen let out an exaggerated sigh. This is the problem, you see. Contract employees just don't get it. The phrasing in the earnest money section of the contract is odd, isn't it? And the commission calculation is wrong. Is it this part here? When the other party commences the execution of the main contract, is that right? Yes, it's supposed to be when one of the parties. Can't you read the clauses properly? It's exasperating. The civil code changed, you know. Hearing that changed her complexion. It was amended in 2020. Maybe you didn't notice because only the wording changed. That's correct, right? I looked at Emily, and she nodded. I revised it because the senior next to me said so. I think the commission calculation is correct, too. For a $40,000 deal, isn't it 3% plus $600? It's 4% plus $200 for anything over $40,000, so it's not a mistake. Upon hearing those words, Karen froze. There were snickers coming from the floor, barely concealed. Emily hasn't made any mistakes, has she, Karen? She said nothing. Emily spoke up hesitantly. I'm really okay, so, what do you mean it's okay? Are you trying to show you're not mad? Think you're being the bigger person? Karen's eyes sparked with a fierce flame again. It seemed she had been angered. She slammed the desk with force and stormed out. Did I just make things worse? Sorry, Emily. No, thank you for standing up for me. She got a bit of a telling off, but hopefully, that's the end of it. But it wasn't. Being corrected in front of everyone seemed to have really gotten under her skin. The next day, the subtle harassment started. It wasn't anything overt, just petty stuff that even high school girls wouldn't bother with. My chair was adjusted to its lowest setting. Tissues disappeared from my desk. My computer wallpaper was randomly changed, and I was somehow left off the happy hour attendance list. Each incident was trivial and didn't affect my work, but the accumulation made me jittery about what might come next. I wanted to yell grow up, but the antagonist was a much younger woman who also happened to be my boss. I hesitated, of course. Today, I found mustard smeared inside the rim of my mug. If Emily hadn't made my tea and warned me it's a yellow mug, I would have had a mouthful. That was a close call. I'm so sorry about all this. Emily apologized. If you hadn't defended me that time, you wouldn't be going through this. It's my fault. She looked down, on the verge of tears. It's not your fault at all. In a way, it's for the best. I've never liked Karen's tyrannical ways, and I couldn't stand to watch a young person being yelled at for no good reason. I just couldn't ignore it. It's just some self-satisfaction for this old man, so don't you worry about it. I tried to play it cool in my own way. Emily looked surprised for a moment but then smiled. You're a good person, Mike. I'm often told I'm too accommodating. I said in a joking tone, and she gave a small laugh, looking into my eyes. From then on, Emily and I talked a lot. Despite the age difference, we clicked oddly well as the underdogs at work. Emily really is a good kid. Always serious about her work, with a desire to learn. She may not be as capable as Karen, but she has a charm that draws people in. It would be great if someone like her could become a leader. Every time I talked to her, that's how I felt. Meanwhile, Karen's petty harassment continued, but I got used to it and could let it roll off me. In fact, Karen seemed more frustrated with my resilience than anything. I really wished she would just get over it. One day, Karen was unusually energetic from the morning. I've got a big meeting with a client this afternoon, so I'll be out, she said with her eyes sparkling. I heard from a colleague that it was a big deal with the president coming in, and if the contract went through, it would mean big profits. It was a surefire promotion for Karen, so it made sense she was all in. Her personality might be problematic, but her professional skills were solid. There shouldn't be any issues. We sent her off with our best wishes. A few hours after Karen left, she contacted me. Hey Mike, can you come over here right now? What? Where are you at the moment, Karen? I'm at AB Construction, our business negotiation partner. Get over here now. Karen's voice was full of irritation, and with those words, the call ended. AB Construction is Karen's business negotiation partner. Why am I being called? Filled with questions and anxiety, I headed to AB Construction. My name is Karen. I work in a real estate company. I must say, being in my early 30s and already holding a position with responsibilities, I consider myself quite an elite in this company. In my personal life, I've never been without a man, and I'm currently engaged to a high-caliber, fantastic guy. My life is on a smooth sailing path. The only shadow cast is perhaps by my subordinates, especially a man named Mike. He's the biggest issue. At 45, he's still a contract employee and single. He's apparently divorced, and I'm sure it's because he was the problem. His work isn't bad, but he lacks initiative. Yet, he has the nerve to give me, of all people, advice and criticism. Just the other day, while I was coaching a new employee, he had the audacity to butt in and point out my mistake. Like poking at the corner of the box. He's exactly what you'd call a nuisance. It's infuriating that such a problematic middle-aged man dares to have an opinion. Anyways, it's clear to me that he's the cancer of our department. Yet, do you have an employee named Mike? The president of AB Construction, our mega project partner, mentioned his name out of the blue. I couldn't hide my surprise. Yes, he's a contract worker, but what about him? That contract worker, Mike. The president said with a smile and a nod. He helped out a lot with a previous real estate contract. I hear from my staff, they say he's quite capable. That's why I want him on this project. I was astonished. This must be what they call a bolt from the blue. But he's just a contract worker. It doesn't matter, does it? He works the same hours, and if he's capable, his position isn't an issue. True, you're right, but I desperately racked my brain. I didn't want to hand over such a major project to someone like Mike. Besides, it's unthinkable for me, the manager, not to handle it and leave it to a mere contract worker. I tried everything to make him reconsider using Mike. I might have exaggerated a bit, but it was mostly the truth. If the president could understand that he's not the right person for this project, that would be enough. I should be the only one in charge of this project. Thanks for telling me so much about him. Anyway, could you call Mike for me? The president didn't take my side. Reluctantly, I decided to call Mike. Arriving at AB Construction, I was led to a conference room. What could possibly be the reason for me being called? I've helped with some work related to AB Construction before, but there were no issues, as far as I remember. No complaints, and I haven't messed up anything. With questions and anxiety, I knocked on the conference room door. It's Mike. Come in. As I nervously opened the door, I locked eyes with Karen, my boss, who had a stern look on her face. I hesitated, then turned to greet the president of AB Construction. I couldn't help but exclaim out loud. The man sitting in front of me, dressed in a sharp black suit, was someone I knew. The president smiled warmly and said, "I thought it was you. Long time no see, Mike." Alex. What? Sitting there was my ex-wife's brother, Alex. I remembered hearing that he worked in construction, but I never imagined he'd be the president, especially of such a major company. It's been a while since you and my sister split up. I was worried you had fallen ill. I was surprised to see your name. Glad to see you're doing well. Are you completely recovered? Yes, about 2 years ago. Alex was smiling, but Karen still had a look of fear. What's this all about? Just as you heard, he's my sister's ex-husband. Wait, I don't think it's appropriate to put him in charge just because he's your former brother-in-law. No, it's a coincidence. I named him because my staff told me he was skilled. Only after did I realize it was him, and I was quite surprised myself. But as I said before, even if he's skilled, he's just a contract worker. I can't imagine such a middle-aged man handling a big job. Maybe he's the reason your sister divorced him. Karen was getting agitated. Alex sighed deeply and looked at her. Look, whether someone is a contractor or a full-time employee doesn't dictate their ability to work, nor is it your place to speculate about the cause of their divorce. Karen fell silent, obviously frustrated. The things you were saying about him earlier were pretty harsh. A person who spreads false rumors and speaks ill cannot be trusted. I can't work with you. What? Karen, I'm sorry, but you're off the project. Her face turned pale. She looked like she was about to collapse, the blood draining from her face. Please wait, sir. This was probably her first stumble. Karen tried to defend herself, but Alex was cold. From here on, I'll discuss with Mike. You can leave. She left the room, looking defeated. I had never seen Karen with such an expression before. Afterward, Alex and I talked about many things, not just work. About what happened after my ex-wife and I divorced. We separated when I fell seriously ill. I had received a terminal diagnosis and didn't think I had long left. I couldn't bear to have her waste her youth on me. Luckily, we didn't have any children, and I convinced her to leave, though she was reluctant. It was a relief for me too, honestly. Eventually, I went into remission, and here I am, though I've gotten older. Being a contract employee is partly due to my circumstances. How's Jessica doing now? Well, sadly, she's in the hospital right now. What? Since the divorce, I hadn't seen her. I was too consumed with my own illness to think of anything else. I was taken aback by Alex's words. Can I visit her in the hospital? When I asked Alex, he smiled sadly and said, My sister, she doesn't really remember much. What? Alex explained that after our divorce, my ex-wife had an accident, hit her head badly, and ended up with memory issues. She hardly remembers anyone except her parents and brother, with just a faint memory of time spent with her family. It might just be painful for you to see her. Despite his warning, I promised to visit her in the hospital the following Sunday. After wrapping up the business talk, I left AB Construction. On the train ride back to the office, I dreaded the potential backlash from Karen, but I was glad to have reconnected with my brother-in-law and to know that the acquisition of the major project was a result of my past work, unrelated to that reunion. Then, a few months later, I received the President's Award for securing the major deal and was promoted from a contract worker to a full-time employee, taking on a managerial position. My subordinate, Emily, has been excelling under my guidance and is now working vigorously. Karen, having been quite shaken by that day's events, surprisingly left the company. I heard a rumor that her fiancé broke it off and she became distrustful. People say that she's now living like a recluse at her parents' house. Oh, look at the time. I need to hurry and buy a cake for Jessica. Now, on my days off, I regularly visit the hospital. Not for my health. To see my ex-wife, who's admitted there. Of course, with her lost memory, she doesn't recognize me or recall the past when she sees my face. So now, I'm getting to know her all over again, this time as a friend. We get along well, just as we did when we were married. I've regained my health and secured a stable job. Now, I'm in a position to take care of her. Life is just beginning. I hurried to Jessica, imagining her enjoying the cake.